Hello, my beautiful co-creators. Lilu here. I'm in Hawaii on Big Island today with Laura Eisenhower. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
This is amazing to finally meet here on this beautiful, exotic island.
I know, it's incredible.
We were supposed to meet in California, and now you're here, one of the speakers at this conference. It was this symposium I was attending, which was on dolphin and teletransportation, time travel, and it was pretty incredible. Something quite special happened there, didn't it?
It definitely did. It was really amazing. Life-altering, I think, for everybody.
Yes. And especially with this connection with the dolphins. I mean, it's quite special. And you really talked quite a lot about the divine feminine, which I would love to speak of with you. But there's really something I would like to start with, because there's something really interesting about you, too, that you're the great-granddaughter of President Eisenhower. So you're born in a certain family. You had a certain path that hasn't been always easy, and now you're speaking out and you're sharing your truth and you're traveling around the world and inspiring people. And tell us about where you were, so that we can really understand how much it took, to really be at this place right now, because I think that's super inspiring.
Wow, that's a great question. Well, before this, I think everybody knows when they can't really express their truth, or every time they've tried, they get shut down, they're not taken seriously. People roll their eyes, they just don't even want to know. And this had roots just in my childhood. And this is not, bashing family or friends, but these were concepts that were really hard for them to grasp. Not that they didn't have their own connection to it, but where I was going with it was a little bit challenging because of the energy that I was feeling, some sort of attack, some sort of control, particularly around the age of 7. And what it did was launch me on a quest to understand where it was coming from, what it meant, both on a metaphysical level, on an esoteric level, and then how it linked to my great-grandfather and his legacy and his warning of the military-industrial complex. So in a way, I was just kind of going along my path trying to answer all these questions while this energy was coming at me, kind of creating an urgency to do such. And it all led to, finally, in 2006, I was involved with a recruitment to go to Mars. And this really solidified some of my findings as far as what the forces had been, what their intention was, and why I was targeted, and what the hidden plans and hidden agendas in the secret government are that relate to teleportation, time travel, things like looking glass technologies, surveillance, remote viewing, and this plan to colonize another planet in the event of catastrophe, which all sounds great, except for there's a lot of hidden layers that the exopolitics movement and our understanding of different ET races can reveal, and where we have freedom and choices and creativity and an imagination that can actually steer things in our favor here on planet Earth, and where exposing truths can help us gain our power back and allow us to take a stand in terms of where our tax dollars are going and what values and principles are important to us that we'd like to maintain and exercise our better judgments of by simply saying no and changing the game. So
how did you say no?
Well, I refused to go on the recruitment, and I just ended up getting louder and louder about the things that were important to me, and really trying to bring a lot of attention to the understanding of the divine feminine and how religion has kind of covered up a lot of her story, particularly in the Old Testament, particularly with the influence of the Anunnaki and a lot of different battles going on concerning the reptilian agenda and our place in the cosmos, as far as either being controlled and enslaved or being free to be the divine beings that we are, with incredible capabilities to transcend this third dimensional reality. So I've been just very vocal about what I feel our potential is and what the missing links are, and how my path has revealed these truths to me based on kind of being up against the very things that try to suppress me, which are those forces I was talking about that started to hit me at a young age. And it's really just energetic. It's really in the planetary matrix, and I think a lot of people feel it, just this imbalance and this injustice that's going on when we see the power structures and the hierarchies out there that aren't really concerned about suffering and, upholding the kind of authority that they project onto everybody, while behind the scenes they're doing even more wicked things than we can imagine. And this isn't about judgment either. It's about helping the light expose in order to reintegrate, forgive, and to help those that are lost return to the light and connect again in a holistic, universal, unified field, so that we can heal, recover, and transform.
So were you particularly exposed to some information as you were part of the being the great-granddaughter of the president, were you actually exposed to some official information or secretive information, or did you do your research on your own?
I did my research on my own. I wasn't really exposed to anything. I had, spirit contact with Ike as a child. And as far as family went, there was just a lot of emphasis on him as a president, him as a war hero, and not so much about the ET issue or about the deeper layers of the military-industrial complex, which has also been termed the military-industrial extraterrestrial complex. So I did a lot of my own research. A lot of it was also triggered by the recruitment and by a lot of things that I noticed are very much linked up. I mean, everything is really connected. The spiritual world, the exopolitics world, and our position here as a humanity. So I started to see the exile of the divine feminine and the connection with the military-industrial complex and how that whole war machine and all the secrecy about UFOs and extraterrestrials have origins in the Anunnaki and the attempt to take away that particular power from the planet in order to control the creative energy of Gaia, which connects to HARP and chemtrails, and also the dumbing down of the DNA and our vulnerability to having to answer to something larger than ourselves when really those structures aren't necessary, and it's really time to awaken and step into this greater power that we have. So I just started to put these pieces together, and so
it started all making sense.
It started to all make sense, and meeting Andy and Alfred and reading Alfred's articles, all the whistleblowers that have come forward, and all this hidden information. It's amazing that the ET issue does have connections to bloodlines and to stories that are in our ancient history, and that the agenda is really to take us off of that. And then, there's secrecy about all the positive extraterrestrial races that are here to assist us, that we have connection to, from a higher self level, which this conference, really...
Pull with your little mic.
Oh, thank you. This conference really brought a lot of light to, just being with Joan, who has so much contact with these higher races, and her connection to the dolphins. And so the multidimensional experience of really stepping into that and empowering the divine feminine, empowering sacred union, empowering the balance within ourselves, can help deal with some of these other things which aren't necessarily positive or easy to listen to. So this is not to demonize or give power to anything that we should fear. It's to really locate what's been in secrecy and what's been pulling us into this potential enslavement, and realizing what has actually been covered up that is the missing link to our liberation.
So what has been covered up as far as our potential, as far as our connection to ET races, as far as other civilization, as far as our DNA?
Well, a lot of it has to do with the tree of life, actually, and the tree of good and evil, and what the serpent energy really means, how it connects to Kundalini, and really the story of Sophia and her sisters, and just that whole Gnostic mythology and understanding of the archons. And that's a very metaphysical backdrop to more of the evidential realities that happen with abduction scenarios and this sort of telepathic communication that some people are getting on a negative level, and mind control and some of the technologies that are really steering people away from free will. And then also the contact and communication with higher races that take people on ships and do things like heal them from cancer and help awaken latent abilities that are connected to the dumbed down DNA, and how this whole other force is trying to come in and assist us that is being kept from our awareness as well. So, we only hear a very small portion of the greater picture. And this world's in duality right now. So we're in a cosmic ecosystem. So we do attract the negatives and the parasitic forces when we allow ourselves to stay out of balance. And we, are still stuck in sort of this mind control and trance, where we identify with ancestral patterns and programmings that have been injected into our culture for thousands of years, starting and rooted in a lot of different religions, and the way the government has used things like ELF, the low frequency waves, and HARP technologies and other things to give us a false perspective of ourselves, of each other, and our potential as a whole. And so, when one targets and locates this particular aspect of the dumbing down and recognizes how much more good there is in the universe and how much more good there is in humanity than the small factions that are trying to steer us in a negative direction, it's all playing into our belief systems. It's not playing into the actual truth that we are lesser than, or we are in doom, or we're in some sort of scenario that we should fear. It's about realizing that our belief systems have been manipulated, and when we call our power back and really, get back into balance and put the right and left brain together, science and spirituality, and understand these myths, then we can really realize that we have a lot more control than we think, and we have a lot more on our side than we think. And so if there's too much fear-mongering, we get off course. If there's too much, emphasis on the light, then, things come up and sneak up on us and can shock us and kind of shatter that illusion. So it's very important to have a balance right now, understand what is happening and what those agendas are, but also realizing that they spend a lot of time trying to create something to take down something that they actually fear, and that it's their fear of us that has motivated them to even create these scenarios, because we're such beings of great potential. And instead of them wanting to step in and surrender, they are very locked into this idea of control and domination rather than wanting to heal themselves. And that's where the rift is. Because if they did want to heal and transform, then that would really help things, because unconditional love is so important right now, and forgiveness. But these agendas are such that they want to continue this sort of game, but it's functioning on a very low dimensional frequency compared to what we're made of. Mm-hmm. And it's simply about frequency and sound and healing and understanding nature and the laws of nature and where the free energy really comes from, and overcoming all of this through these kind of awarenesses, particularly the heart right now, and understanding Venus and the energies of the feminine that have been in work behind the scenes this whole time, which we're made of course, that we have repressed.
Tell us more about that heart chakra.
Yeah, well, the heart chakra is connected to the thymus gland. The thymus gland is connected to the immune system. So really, as we know, children thrive on love. The mother has to give the child love. The mother frequencies are so nurturing. And when we, fear our future and this and that, we simply need to tap into the cosmic mother and not, kind of undermine these things or consider them myth. There's a lot of evidence. There's a lot of hidden information. There's a lot of documentation and ancient texts that have been hidden. And
such as?
Well, the Gnostic text, the Nag Hammadi, if I'm saying that right, is one that's getting out there more, that has been translated. And I have some information, too, that I would like to publish sometime that's been hidden, that talks about a lot of things concerning Eve and Sophia and the origins of that story, even though a lot happened before that. And this power, this latent power that is basically our planetary body and our connection to her. And it's a multidimensional being that has, a connection to source energy itself. As everything does. But Gaia is very unique in a sense, because we're sort of being initiated and we're given a choice, whereas a lot of higher worlds are already living in a consciousness that is sustainable, that doesn't create duality or war or suffering, and so they're doing pretty good. And we're sort of here to understand, our choices and what we allow ourselves to be attracted to, that keeps us locked into this cycle. So a lot of the hidden truths are also about what is beyond the kind of cycles of heaven and hell, and how there's a higher world, and where true creator source is in a space that is free of that and enables us to connect with our power, that's able to create new universes and timelines and realities that aren't like locked into this cycle of life and death that we've been in. So, that's an ascension process, but there's initiations to get there, and that's where the zodiac has assisted us since the whole tree of life scenario became the tree of good and evil. And we sort of had a choice that was thrown in there based on knowledge and obtaining knowledge. And so the zodiac has helped us through these cycles in order to have a blueprint that we would be born with, to kind of have wake-up calls manifest and different scenarios manifest, so that we could learn and awaken. And it's all coded in us, that we kind of, are born with experiences to help us get to that level. And so also the Venus transits that connect to the divine feminine, in the heart chakra, it's masculine and feminine, of course, because it's about union, but the reason the focus is on the feminine is because it's been very pushed away and very much hidden and exiled, and things have been rewritten to only really talk about the Virgin Mary or Mary Magdalene in a light that isn't totally true to all that she represented, and also all the other sisters and stories and myths that are a part of our experience and our ability to restore ourselves, our DNA, and our planet. And so the Venus transits are drawing a pentagram in the sky, and they're in 284-year cycles. They're in pairs that are 8 years apart. And they draw, astrologers have found that the points in which the Venus and Earth have an alignment, they leave, a mark. And there's retrogrades that also create, it's moving backwards. But if one traces where it's going in the cosmos, it draws a pentagram. And so this is what's reversing the demonic consciousness and the whole inversion that things like the Illuminati and the global elite have been using and manipulating. Their whole ritual And their whole power structure is based on the inversion of everything that connects to the divine feminine, including all the symbolism, the pentagram, the inverted pentagram, and different things about shutting down the natural stargate, which is the Jacob's ladder and stairway to heaven. And so there's been heavy agendas just on an esoteric occult level that the government, hidden factions of the government, have played into in order to know sort of how to manipulate power days and power events to become like false flags in times of disaster, so that instead of awakening more and being more illuminated, we fall into fear and doom scenario because something will happen in the news that is not natural, whether it be a natural disaster or a terrorist attack. And so there's specific days and specific times that they choose these events to steer us away from the unity consciousness that we would really be developing if we were just connecting to what the cosmos are doing. So it's very important to be aware of this, because if we don't allow ourselves to plug into it and fall into that fear and that manipulation, then we can really utilize the forces of the cosmos that are coming in to take us to the next level. And we just really can't allow ourselves to be distracted. And it's hard because we empathize with those that are hit and those that are suffering. But we've all, decided to play different parts in order to get to the next level. And we've had past lives that have, played certain parts that have been challenging and difficult. And we just have to, understand that everything is in an alchemical process, in a transformational process. Mm-hmm. And to not, buy into the pain too much and the suffering too much, and to see it as an initiation into liberation from it all. And by exposing the truths, then we can start to name and bring about justice, so that these things, aren't happening anymore. I mean, there's a way to stop it, I think. And, one can't just dream, we can't just dream our way out of it and just have positive thoughts alone and just be loving and think about unity and wholeness. I think there's a certain degree of responsibility we have to expose these things, especially in protection of children and some of the ritual abuse that takes place and the mind control programs. And so I just think that's a huge part of it. I don't think everybody's called to have to take on that role, but I just think it's important. I think everybody has a particular calling, and the most important thing we can do is be true to what that calling is without overextending ourselves at the detriment of our well-being. But, I think each of us, as long as we're true to ourselves, that creates well-being, and our body is a great gauge, saying, okay, enough is enough, and to pull oneself back and realizing that our true purpose really is our own frequency and what we give off, and to just honor the balance within ourselves and not overextend or underextend, but just find that happy medium. And that's really, I think, what our purpose is, rather than, got to go do this because it's the right thing to do. Unless you're called to do it, I think it's just good to just honor, your own rhythm and your own comfort level. Well,
you've certainly been courageous in digging into what you've been digging in.
Yeah, this is definitely what I signed up for.
This is a strong mission that you have.
It's true. I mean, I can't.
You're passionate.
I am, and I can't. It's like my nervous system can only do this. So even if I feel I'm overextending myself, I realize if I'm not doing it, it's like I try and have a vacation. I try and give myself a break, but it never ends. It's a constant, and
it's imprinted.
It's imprinted, right? And there's going to be a point where I'm going to choose a scenario or a lifetime where maybe I'll get a break, and somebody else will, take it on to this level. It's just, it's my calling. I'm being true to it. And the more true to it I am, the better well-being I have. Mm-hmm. And, but there is a fine line, and I'm working on that personal balance, just like I just said that I recommend for everybody else. And I have to give myself that wisdom because, sometimes our empathy and compassion can overrun us to the point of exhaustion. Mm. And we just have to be careful because it really is about frequency and vibration. And if we're exhausting ourselves, depleting ourselves, not taking good care of ourselves,
sacrificing
too much, then we find that that we're not emanating something that is useful. We're actually it's the excess deficiency balance, and the Chinese understand that really well in Chinese medicine. And so we want to be the example on a frequency level.
And how much help do we have from outside? How can we tap into that help?
Well, the Galactic Federation of Light, was established a really long time ago when particularly the planet Nibiru and the whole sort of this artificial planet with this demiurge type archonic system was developed. Not all Anunnaki are bad, but it created sort of a war in the cosmos. I know that's hard for a lot of people to swallow, but it's just in a particular sphere of the universe, and it's affected this planetary body. It affects the solar system, and it's very available to us. People tap into it all the time. There's sort of a rule of non-intervention, mm-hmm. but I mean there is intervention. There's intervention from the negative, and so that a lot of treaties have been broken too. Mm-hmm. And so we've had a lot of help from higher star systems, higher races, the Pleiadians, the Andromedans, the Arcturians, because they are linked to our higher self, and we really invoke it and call it in when we're connecting to that. It's kind of a law of attraction. So intervention, the non-intervention to me is more like, if you are not stepping up to the plate in yourself, how can we show up and help you? But if people are invoking it and asking for it and stepping up to the plate as far as emanating a higher awareness and being in their higher self, then that is naturally going to happen. Just like when we're out of balance and we're living sort of in a trance and in a mind control society, and we're not letting ourselves wake up, these darker forces and these entities thrive. It's no more different than the human body and the way it attracts diseases and germs or illumination and enlightenment. The planetary body has the same thing, except it's up to us to create the conditions. So we have a lot of assistance as long as we call upon it, and we, as a collective consciousness, bring attention to it. We have there's a lot about this particular element comet coming in that is actually assisting in maintaining the light and keeping darker forces out. Some people are afraid it's Nibiru and the Draconians coming in, but the information that I've gotten is actually it's not at all. That a force field of light has been created, and it's not allowing any more dark forces in, and those that are wishing for the so-called masters to come in and complete the job in order to create New World Order, they're discovering that scenario is most likely not going to happen. And that's just one or two sources that I've gotten that from. And the only reason that I bring that to light is because I feel it in my heart, or else I wouldn't say it.
That's what I was going to ask you. How do you actually, because there's so much information out there, so how do you feel that truth? How do you know if something is true?
Yeah.
How do you distinguish it?
I think everybody has their own truth. And I think, it's dangerous for us to assume that what we say is the ultimate truth. I mean, even what I'm saying, it's like, yeah, I have to question that bit of information that, a force field of light is being put around the planet and nothing evil can come in. But because I feel so connected to it, because I've had dreams about it, because that was information that I was given as a child when I was connecting to just higher energies and higher frequencies about the destiny of our planet, it makes total sense to me. And so I can only really empower my truth and share it for people to either dismiss or say, wow, I feel the same way. And I'm not here to convince anybody of anything except for to look within themselves and see what they're getting. And to also, look within themselves to where that fear is, because we have to realize that fear is a very false emotion. It's not something to be judged, because it can help us in times of crisis, because it can alert caution, it gives us discernment. But when it comes to it being carried as a dominant force in our creative energy, it can really do more damage than good. And so we just have to keep ourselves in check. And we have to understand that our creative bodies, we have creative energy, that thought, and just our mindset and our belief systems create our reality. And so it's not so much about truth, it's also about understanding how to shift a situation at any given time by being fully present in the now, and how we can shift our reality by harnessing our creative power and moving things in a favor that brings manifestation to our dreams and our visions that we hope for. And so there's no permanent truth except for what are the tools we can use, what kind of awareness can we possibly have, what means something to us, what are our passions, how can we make them manifest, and what is undermining it or getting in the way, and how can we get rid of it. And it's that particular understanding that I think is the greatest of truth, rather than the information and the facts that we hear in the news or we hear on the internet or that we hear in passing. So regardless of what I share about, the light body and where we're heading as a planet, I'd much rather empower, just the principles of a creative being, and just, activating the 12-strand DNA. And there's actually more strands than that. There's more chakras than 12 even. There's 13 dimensions, and there's chakras in each of those dimensions. And I've learned this from very skilled clairvoyants that have done incredible amount of energy work and work with the Hawkins scale. Chandra Rose, I believe her name is, I hope I get that right. She would be so upset. I'm just kind of like, so much has happened this week. But the New Earth Center of Light is very profound as far as understanding that kind of cosmology, that kind of, that our ethereal body in that way. So I think it's really important to understand our tools, our creative energy, and what our power is capable of, what our imaginations are capable of, and what forces are out there that really do undermine it, that don't need to. It's a process of transformation, and in order to transform, just like alchemy turning lead into gold, there's going to be some sort of force that acts as a catalyst, but it can turn into victim consciousness, it can turn into pain and suffering if it's not recognized as being something to promote strength, wisdom, and enlightenment. And so we just have a choice. And in that choice, in every given moment, we can shift things. And when we really, as a collective whole, work on that together, then we're home free.
Yeah. I love what Gary Zukav said a couple of weeks ago when I interviewed him. He wrote one of his latest books is the Spiritual Partnership and Authentic Power, really finding our authentic power. And he's saying how we have to just be with our fear and dive into it and be with it instead of suppressing it or pretending it's not there. Just kind of be there and feel it. Absolutely. So that then it frees our authentic power. And this is what really this is about.
Absolutely.
Authentic power.
It really is. And that's why...
Not being afraid, just being with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And emotions too. And see, a lot of people think, well, it's not enlightened to be angry. It's not enlightened to be emotional. It's not enlightened to be fearful. And the thing is, it's like, it does get repressed. It does manifest in other ways because the body will start creating symptoms of any form of repression. Yeah. The greatest thing that we can do, and this is where I bring up the alchemy and transformation, is exactly what you said. And what he says is that you dive into it. That's what the underworld journey is about. That's why I had the labyrinth tattoo, because, in a way, I did dive into it. I dove into the dark night of the soul, even on a planetary level, to feel all the profound suffering and pain and anguish, and to really feel it and embrace it and love it and give it attention, give it nurturing, give it love, and look at it and see, what it has to say, because pain is a teacher, and there's always something that it's revealing, that it's like a hidden code. It's I'm hurting or I'm suffering because I have something to tell you, rather than you shouldn't feel this, so therefore shut it off. And so there is a lot of wisdom in all of that. It's just as a dominant creative force that is not being looked at, but it's just something that we project onto our environment constantly. It's not necessarily a healthy thing. Just like being too positive and being too, it's really about balance. And so, and neutrality on some level. So I think, jumping into it, embracing it, it basically starts to expire because it's not the true creative force of the cosmos or of source energy. It's a sort of separation from it, and in understanding it, you're actually bringing the light to that fear and to that pain and asking it to come home, rather than saying, oh, I'm ashamed of it. I don't even want to, give it any power or attention. It needs to be given some, and I absolutely agree, because a lot of people, just almost there's a judgment on it.
I don't think right now, and you could tell us with the transitions, but it doesn't feel like we need to be too long in the suffering either. We can be in that pain or in that fear, be with it, and then all of a sudden it seems to transmute, and this whole alchemy seems to be quicker and quicker these days.
I totally agree. And I was saying on the panel today,
magic, too. I know, I want to hear about magic.
Yeah, I mean, in miracles too, and just laughter. It's like sitting in that kind of suffering and pain. I mean, after a while, it's like one can just start to laugh and just kind of crack up, and it's just kind of a lot of it's self-imposed, a lot of it's not. But at the same time, it's like one can detach from it to a certain degree, but it's not a dominant creative force, but it's something that has something to teach us. And if we could just get the wisdom from it and move on and utilize it into our vision to walk forward with, I think it's served us. But ultimately, the greatest and truest form of creativity is divinity, is just the power of the higher self and the sacred union within ourselves, where we're not looking externally all the time for answers, that we really feel and trust ourselves, we can fall back on ourselves and feel security, feel safe, feel nurtured, and feel loved. Because every time, we're looking to our leaders or looking to, a relationship or something we feel we need, we give our power away. And, of course, those things will come, but I think it really takes utilizing it and awakening it and finding that center within first. That'll bring the most authentic form of that mirror that we desire.
You also speak about activation of the 12 strands of DNA?
Yeah.
Do you teach that?
Well, I mean, I do readings, and, a lot of it is connected to belief systems, the manipulation of belief systems, and they carry over in ancestral patterns, and so we inherit what seems to be maybe a cancer gene or diabetes or this and that, but on a metaphysical level, what is the behavior pattern? What is the energy that brings on that kind of behavior that leads to that sort of weakness or that kind of, lifestyle that attracts that sort of thing? So, and that's connected to DNA, and, the dark matter of the cosmos, that we hear about, and junk DNA. A lot of it does connect to our ethereal body and to our higher selves and to all these upper chakras. And the 2-strand DNA, is really much more, based on the physical. and based on just survival and based on, all these different principles that seem to run, our humanity, that motivate us, and so that's what causes people to say, okay, I'll take this job because I just need to feed my family, even if it's, for a corporation or a system that we don't believe in. Mm-hmm. We're in survival. Sometimes we can't even take the time to care. And so when we really activate the rest of who we are and we get more in these higher spheres, the power of spirit is stronger than the power of matter, and things start to materialize and manifest like a dreamer would. We see evidence of this in the astral when we're dreaming at night. Sometimes the thing that we need is right there at any given time, or we just know how to fly away when we're in danger, and we have, these amazing abilities. And so we see in dark matter, as in astral, as in being asleep, some of these potentials, but when we're in this waking reality, the programming is that we don't have access to it. And it takes a lot, for a seeker or a searcher, the type of person that wants to uncover who they really are, to begin to realize it. But then it's also a snap of the fingers, and the timing of it is different for everybody. But the point is, it's being willing to be an explorer and an adventurer, and not fearing one's power or the darkness, because the darkness is the womb, it's the creativity, and the patriarchy, the global elite, has taken total advantage of a place of mystery and injected a lot of fear and a lot of repression, so that we're not wanting to be explorers. We want somebody to do the hard work for us and tell us where we should go and what we should do and what we should eat. And so we're always listening to the experts and this and that. And most of the people you interview, are experts in consciousness. And that's what's creating Great Awakening, because it's not about so much the information. It's about the latent powers of the human race, and how we are of extraterrestrial origin, of divine origin, of goddess, and that's more about, giving one permission to delve into it and explore it and awaken it and do the research and be triggered to find those places, rather than, something that you'd watch on TV and just nod your head and say, okay, that's going on in the world. And where we get locked into those cycles of, war and it's like we're living through just the matrix of what we see on the television. And so I just have to thank you for being the type of person that gives a voice to those that can remind people of who they really are.
But I love to interview people that are in their essence, and that, like you, share their truth. And I think that's very empowering to others to see that, and it's encouraging and inspiring to do that in our own life. Beyond just the information, it's beautiful to watch somebody that is going beyond those blocks and those fears and the control, and just finally decide to spread their wings and go for it.
Yeah, because it's information and essence. It's right and left brain. It's knowledge and wisdom, and we do need both. But a lot of times getting caught up in the stories can distract us from being able to shift them. Yeah. Because we tend to not be creators. We tend to be consumers. We tend to be just taking it all in and absorbing it, and then not knowing what to do with it. So it elicits either fear or the desire and longing to break free, but without the awareness and realization that we have that ability just at any given moment.
Do you think we really need time travel? We spoke this weekend about, you spoke about time travel and teletransportation and all those things. Isn't that something that we can achieve actually on our own later without any equipment?
Yeah, really technology does mimic our higher abilities. And but at this point in time, because of the amount of damage that's happened to our planetary body, and just, especially with transportation and the use of fossil fuels and the amount of pollution, that the cities create, it's really time to, think eco-cities, to think, cities and civilization in harmony with nature. And so, if these technologies exist, and especially Tesla technology that is utilizing radiant energy and free energy, it's very much in harmony with nature if directed in the right ways. And, it's like anything. If you give the wrong tools to the wrong people, it's going to be used for the wrong purposes. And so, I think it's extremely important to disclose these technologies. I think Andy's done a brilliant job bringing it out there and having Andrew Bashago, yes, bringing these truths out there, because obviously he was, in that program, but he's bringing integrity to it. He's bringing morality to it, Project Pegasus. And so I do think it's important, because, if you can get to London and then to New York in a matter of minutes, think of what that would do for our world. And then as we develop on a spiritual level and learn how to bilocate and do all these other things, it's kind of like training wheels. But we're so kind of in the dark ages right now on a technological level, even though people think their iPhones are where it's at. We really are. And I mean, having all that while they have all this, it doesn't make much sense that it would just be used for certain purposes in secrecy. So when that gets disclosed and we get used to that, it frees up a lot of our travel energy and the stress of making enough money to even visit our grandparents that might live in another country. And it gives us all this power back and all this time back and all this creativity back to then look at ourselves as spiritual beings with great abilities to start to figure out how to do this stuff on our own. But we're so busy trying to make the money to get on the plane, to go travel and go spread our information that, that's a huge portion of our lives that could be given back to us. And the rest could be simplified with the use of these technologies, and then we could really explore what we're capable of, and then the technologies wouldn't be necessary. It's like Jose Arguelles' book, The Path Beyond Technology, and that's really where we're headed is to get beyond technology. But to do that, we have to first disclose what is there to remind us, oh, wow, that device is showing us something within ourselves that we eventually will be able to, enjoy.
To beautiful Barbara Max Hubbard. I don't know if you know her, but...
Oh, yeah. We're really connected, actually. She lives really close to me.
She's 81 years old and really the grandmother of invention, as Neil Donald Walsh puts it in his book. But she's wonderful at understanding how technology is actually helping us to launch these new types of beings that we are, because there's a certain communication that is happening, and sooner or later we'll probably be communicating telepathically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everything serves its purpose.
Yeah, and more synchronicities are happening. People are finding, and a lot of people have amazing stories that just show this, and it's great that you mentioned her, because, she's developed a whole model that is really profound that I won't get into, but I met her recently, and we had this Ike connection, and just, we definitely see eye to eye on future stuff.
Beautiful.
And the now stuff.
Amazing. If there's one other thing that you would like to share that we haven't talked about, or a call to action, or... Yeah, I mean, I've been so inspired all week, and I just think so much incredible stuff was shared. And, really, if we want to leave a dualistic society, we can't think in terms of duality. Even the truth movement has a lot of opposition and has, sort of this, sometimes it's not very nice. And, I'm just to, empower just our ability to really get along and support one another and be in community, and, really work on just not fearing the difficult information, and not, getting bent out of shape about, certain things that need to be exposed, because, following a lot of that difficult information is an incredible amount of positive information that I think, I just encourage people to explore both. And the work of Andrew Bishago, Alfred Weber, and me has really showed me that we cover a lot of those kind of bases, where a lot of the difficult, challenging information is covered, but yet the backdrop of it is all about the positive timeline, alternative 4, and really about the missing links and the solutions. And there's a lot of people out there doing similar things, and so, not to be in denial about things like the reptilian agenda and the artificial intelligence computers, and the mark of the beast, and the things going on in underground facilities, and the MK Ultra programs, and the those kind of things going on. To not be afraid to accept that, because it needs some level of exposure, but at the same time, focusing our creative energy and our intention and our beings in this whole other thing that is coming to light that has been hidden. So, two forces have been hidden, and one has been to engulf the other. So when one gets exposed, it actually frees up the other one to take over and actually resolve the problem and put it in its place and create the necessary justice. So I guess, the thing that I want to leave with is that, people think unity consciousness, people awaken the divine feminine within themselves, create that inner union, and, put an end to the negatives by simply not going into fear and not being a product of what those agendas are, and staying in, the light of our highest potential. And, it's not for everybody to delve into those darker stories, but, just to know that it's being resolved through what we're doing together, and that embrace it all,
and realize that we're connected to all of it and everything. And when we do the transformational work on a soul level within ourselves, we send out the frequencies that dispel it and actually dissolve it. And I did have those visions as a kid. And even though I was, pulled into this Mars program, and I was up against a lot of these challenging technologies and mind control scenarios, I never lost that vision. And it's what pulled me through and helped me get away from it. And it was actually not as hard as maybe some people think, because when you're devoted to truth and the goodness of the universe and to the love of the universe, you can pretty much survive and get through anything.
And you're the proof of that.
Yeah, I mean, this is not just some philosophy. It is definitely my story, and I stuck to just the devotion of all of that, and you know, I'm really trying to empower some of these whistleblowers that are coming out with these stories, but not in a way that puts that first. It's saying that in order to put an end to it, we bring it to the light, and we allow it to be revealed so that the other energies can engulf it with unconditional love, because it's very inorganic. It's a part of an artificial system that will fall apart with the high frequencies and the intelligence of our higher consciousness. And this I know for a fact, because when certain sound healing properties are given to certain lower energies, it dissolves their abilities. And this is what they use in the mind control, is frequency and sound and things that have to do with brain waves and synapses. So frequency and sound is actually going to reverse this, and to do the opposite of what those agendas are promoting, which is falling into fear. And so falling into love and laughter and unity is where it's at.
Beautiful. Well, what a juicy moment. Thank you.
Oh, sure.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Much love, my beautiful co-creators from Big Island.
Thank you, everybody. Been termed the military-industrial extraterrestrial complex. So I did a lot of my own research. A lot of it was also triggered by the recruitment and by a lot of things that I noticed are very much linked up. I mean, everything is really connected. The spiritual world, the exopolitics world, and our position here as a humanity. So I started to see the exile of the divine feminine and the connection with the military-industrial complex, and how that whole war machine and all the secrecy about UFOs and extraterrestrials have origins in the Anunnaki, and the attempt to take away that particular power from the planet in order to control the creative energy of Gaia, which connects to HARP and chemtrails, and also the dumbing down of the DNA, and our vulnerability to having to answer to something larger than ourselves, when really those structures aren't necessary, and it's really time to awaken and step into, you know, this greater power that we have. So I just, you know, started to put these pieces together, and so
it started all making sense.
It started to all make sense, and meeting Andy and Alfred and reading Alfred's articles, all the whistleblowers that have come forward, and all this hidden information. It's amazing that the ET issue does have connections to bloodlines and to stories that are in our ancient history, and that the agenda is really to take based on kind of being up against the very things that try to suppress me, which are those forces I was talking about that started to hit me at a young age. And it's really just energetic. It's really in the planetary matrix, you know, and I think a lot of people feel it, just this imbalance and this injustice that's going on when we see the power structures and the hierarchies out there that aren't really concerned about suffering and, you know, upholding the kind of authority that they project onto everybody, while behind the scenes they're doing even more wicked things than we can imagine. And this isn't about judgment either. It's about helping the light expose in order to reintegrate, forgive, and to help those that are lost return to the light and connect again in a holistic, universal, unified field, so that we can heal, recover, and transform.
So were you particularly exposed to some information as you were part of the, you know, being the great-granddaughter of the president? Were you actually exposed to some official information or secretive information, or did you do your research on your own?
I did my research on my own. I wasn't really exposed to anything. I had, you know, spirit contact with Ike as a child, And as far as family went, there was just a lot of emphasis on him as a president, him as a war hero, and not so much about the ET issue or about the deeper layers of the military-industrial complex, which is also...
Hello, my beautiful co-creators. Lilu here. I'm in Hawaii on Big Island. Today with Laura Eisenhower. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
This is amazing to finally meet here on this beautiful, exotic island.
I know. It's incredible.
We were supposed to meet in California, and now you're here, one of the speakers at this conference. It was this symposium I was attending, which was on dolphin and teletransportation, time travel, and it was pretty incredible. Something quite special happened there, didn't it?
It definitely did. It was really amazing. Life-altering, I think, for everybody.
Yes. And especially with this connection with the dolphins. I mean, it's quite special. And you really talked quite a lot about the divine feminine, which I would love to speak of with you. But there's really something I would like to start with, because there's something really interesting about you, too, that you're the great-granddaughter of President Eisenhower. So you're born in a certain family. You had a certain path that hasn't been always easy. And now you're speaking out and you're sharing your truth and you're traveling around the world and inspiring people. And tell us about where you were, so that we can really understand how much it took, to really be at this place right now, because I think that's super inspiring.
Wow, that's a great question. Well, before this, I think everybody knows when they can't really express their truth, or every time they've tried, they get shut down, they're not taken seriously, people roll their eyes, they just don't even want to know. And this had roots just in my childhood, and this is not, bashing family or friends, but these were concepts that were really hard for them to grasp. Not that they didn't have their own connection to it, but where I was going with it was a little bit challenging because of the energy that I was feeling, some sort of attack, some sort of control, particularly around the age of 7. And what it did was launch me on a quest to understand where it was coming from, what it meant, both on a metaphysical level, on an esoteric level, and then how it linked to my great-grandfather and his legacy and his warning of the military-industrial complex. So in a way, I was just kind of going along my path trying to answer all these questions while this energy was coming at me, kind of creating an urgency to do such. And it all led to, finally, in 2006, I was involved with a recruitment to go to Mars. And this really solidified some of my findings as far as what the forces had been, what their intention was, and why I was targeted, and what the hidden plans and hidden agendas in the secret government are that relate to teleportation, time travel, things like looking glass technologies, surveillance, remote viewing, and this plan to colonize another planet in the event of catastrophe, which all sounds great, except for there's a lot of hidden layers that the exopolitics movement and our understanding of different ET races can reveal, and where we have freedom and choices and creativity and an imagination that can actually steer things in our favor here on planet Earth, and where exposing truths can help us gain our power back and allow us to take a stand in terms of where our tax dollars are going and what values and principles are important to us that we'd like to maintain and exercise our better judgments of by simply saying no and changing the game. So
how did you say no?
Well, I refused to go on the recruitment, and I just ended up getting louder and louder about the things that were important to me, and really trying to bring a lot of attention to the understanding of the divine feminine and how religion has kind of covered up a lot of her story, particularly in the Old Testament, particularly with the influence of the Anunnaki and a lot of different battles going on concerning the reptilian agenda and our place in the cosmos, as far as either being controlled and enslaved or being free to be the divine beings that we are, with incredible capabilities to transcend this third dimensional reality. So I've been just very vocal about what I feel our potential is and what the missing links are, and how my path has revealed these truths to me